A Charleston man has recently been handed a 10-year sentence for possessing illegal ghost guns. This as the U.S. Supreme Court has upheld a Biden-era federal regulation that bans the homemade weapons. Joining us more on this is Brooke Andrews, acting U.S. Attorney from the U.S. Attorney's Office, District of South Carolina. Glad to have you with us. So, I have a concept of what a ghost gun is, but maybe you could help define what a ghost gun actually is.
A ghost gun, Layla, is any firearm that doesn't have a serial number on it. And so that could be a gun where the serial number has been obliterated. It can be a gun that has been ordered from overseas in component parts that somebody puts together on their own. Or, as we're seeing more, it can be a gun that is printed by a 3D printer and assembled by someone in their home.
And the latter is so utterly frightening to me. How common is that?
It's not that common in South Carolina yet. We've not seen it as much, but it's becoming more common around the country. And of course, it happened in the case that we're talking about here today with Jimmy King here in Charleston.
And Jimmy King, he also was in possession of gun parts. So it sounds like there was 3D printer materials, but then there was also imported parts. So he found himself in a world of trouble, but particularly for him because he was not supposed to have any.
That's correct, and I want to focus on that. I think one of the most important things we do in the United States Attorney's Office is to protect the public from violent people. And Mr. King did have a violent criminal history. He had a history of distributing illegal drugs and dangerous drugs. It was through the work of Homeland Security investigations that they found a package of gun parts that were destined to Mr. King. And when they went inside his home, they found that he was making his own firearms. Now, Mr. King was a convicted violent felon. He shouldn't have been possessing any type of firearm at all.
So that ups the ante, too, on the actual conviction, doesn't it?
It does. And so he would not have been able to go to a firearm distributor and purchase a firearm, and so that's why he was ordering them and trying to make them in his own home.
Yeah, we read these stories all the time, and it sounds like the weapons end up in wrong hands all the time, all over the country, not just here in South Carolina, but everywhere. That where there's a will, there's a way. Now, going back to the 3D printed guns, that sounds like it could be kind of an expensive operation and one that you really have a very difficult time to control, because you could be in your little extra room in your house printing out this stuff made out of plastic or epoxy or whatever it is, and then you're out on the street hurting people with it.
A lot of the people who make these guns try to sell them as well. And so it can be a revenue generating enterprise for some of these folks.
I see. So the package that was destined for this particular convict, it was intercepted because of what the materials were. So that's a possibility. So anybody watching this, beware.
Customs and Border Patrol is on the case, especially when it comes to illegal firearm parts that are coming from China.
Well, that at least is a little bit reassuring to know that some of these packages are getting thoroughly vetted, or as much as they possibly can. So we're talking about convicted felons who should not be in possession of a weapon, but what if the non-convict, the one who has no rap sheet, and they decide, I just want to, as a hobby, start printing out guns? Can they do that?
Not currently. Not currently.
No. Okay, so that is the law. No. And the consequence, he received a 10-year sentence. Well, he had a long history. So what typically are the consequences should you get caught with one of these ghost guns?
Well, again, I want to focus on what it's going to be for someone who is prohibited from owning any type of firearm, because the charge in this case was felon in possession of a firearm, which is a charge that we regularly prosecute. For Mr. King, that came with a maximum penalty of 15 years, and so he got 10, which was, on the higher end of that band. It could have been lower than that, but he was right within the guidelines that the court typically follows for issuing a sentence. And so you're right. I mean, those are pretty stiff penalties, and frankly, it's a penalty that in federal prison he will serve most of that sentence.
Federal prison.
Correct.
Okay. Is South Carolina tougher, or is it on par with other states when it comes to these types of gun laws?
I think obviously we charge federal crimes, and so we're doing things the same way it's being done elsewhere in other U.S. attorneys' offices across the country, but we work hand in glove with our state and local partners on cases in violent crime, and they are, as committed as we are, if not more so, to eradicating violent crime from our communities.
And why is a case like this handled at the federal level as opposed to the state level?
Well, it's one of our jobs to, assist our state and local partners. When they have recidivist offenders in the community, a lot of times those federal penalties can be stronger than some of the state penalties. And so we will often step in when we see violent felons who are possessing and selling firearms. We try to step in on those cases and help them out.
Okay, so the message is, don't do it. Right.
The message is don't commit any felonies, and if you do, you should certainly not be making your own guns.
You don't want this man coming after you. So I want to thank you so much for sharing with us and edifying us on this. It's probably something that we'd like to have you come back and talk more about because it's inevitable, in this day and age. But thank you for helping to make our streets that much safer.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Brooks. We'll be back after this.